Hey everybody, welcome back. It's another episode of Jake Talks Star Wars, and today I'm coming at you with another Star Wars Legends book review. This time, Shadows of the Empire. And this copy of Shadows of the Empire is very, very special to me because this I got back when I was probably 10 years old. Between 8 and 10 years old is when I got this. And this is the very first Star Wars novel that I ever read as an 8 to 10-year-old. And of course, there was probably some things in here I shouldn't have been reading as an 8 to 10-year-old, but that's okay. So it's very, very special to me because it's that first Star Wars novel I really remember reading. And later played the video game. Right, this is the first Star Wars game I played as well. So for those of you who don't know, Shadows of the Empire came out in, what was it, published 1996, I believe. And this was part of a multimedia push that Lucasfilm did in the mid-90s with Shadows of the Empire. The idea was that it's everything but the movie. It is a book. It is a comic. It is a video game. It is toys and action figures, even a soundtrack, right? They even had a soundtrack for this. And so it's everything but the movie. And it came out right before the special editions, right? The special editions come out just a couple years later, and then we get the prequels after that. So it really kind of kicks off this whole new era of Star Wars in conjunction with the novels, the Legends novels that we've already been getting, going back to the Heir to the Empire trilogy, right? The Thrawn trilogy. So we get the Thrawn trilogy in the early 90s, 91 to 93. I made a mistake in my last video. And then in 96, we get this multimedia push, Shadows of the Empire, where we've got, again, the book, the movie, the comic, the toys, everything. Now, I came to this late. Right, I wasn't a part of it when it first came out. I read this probably in 98. Is probably when I read this, and I remember reading it because we were moving. We were moving from one state to another, and my parents bought this for me right before we moved. So I had something to read in the car because we were doing like a 20-hour car trip. And I remember, 8-year-old Jake, or whatever, I think it was 8-year-old Jake, reading this Star Wars novel. And then a couple years later, and then I think about a year later, I got the game, right? I got the game for my Nintendo 64. I think maybe that winter, for Christmas, I got the game for the Nintendo 64, which was incredible. I love that game, Shadows of the Empire. So very special time for Star Wars fans. Very neat little piece of history. Star Wars has recently done something similar with the High Republic, right? The High Republic was kind of an everything but the movie situation as well, where they had books and they had comics and they had audiobooks. They didn't do video games. They didn't do video games or a soundtrack for those, but it was a similar kind of idea where it's this multimedia push of this story. So, Shadows of the Empire takes place between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. So it takes place between those two movies, and it deals with Luke and Leia and Lando trying to recover Han's carbonite slab, right? They want to get Han back. They want to find Han Solo. They want to get him back and rescue him. So it's kind of going through what they did. We see a lot of cool stuff happen in this novel. We get a new character named Dash Rendar, who is in and out of the book, right? In the video game, he's the main character. So he's the main character of the video game, but in the book, he's like a side character that you're never really quite sure where he stands. You're never really quite sure if he's like totally in with our heroes or if he is just kind of in and out with our heroes. So kind of a bummer. With him, kind of an interesting character. He's a Han Solo type, and he's written that way as like a Han Solo type. I think he's younger than Han. His ship, the Outrider, is a YT 2400 freighter. So his ship is very similar. It's the Outrider, and he's very much a Han Solo type, who is helping. He's done work for the Rebel Alliance. He delivered supplies to Hoth, which in the video game results in him fighting in the Battle of Hoth, which he references in the book. So he's an interesting character, but we get Luke and Leia and Lando, and they're all kind of working to get Han back, and we're dealing with a bad guy. Our villain is this guy here, Prince Xizor. I've got my Prince Xizor action figure from the mid-90s somewhere. I have it somewhere. I tried finding it before I recorded this video. I couldn't find it, but I do have it around somewhere. So if I ever find it, I'll add it as a thumbnail. But Xizor is the head of a criminal syndicate called Black Sun. Now, those of you who are newer fans will recognize the name Black Sun because it was referenced in the Clone Wars, and it was referenced in, I think it's referenced in Clone Wars. It's been referenced in other materials since then. So it is, Black Sun is canon. The Faline species, this guy, are canon as well, even though we haven't been yet introduced to Prince Xizor. And he is a super interesting character. He is a crime boss. He is super wealthy. He is one of the head crime bosses in the galaxy. He is extraordinarily wealthy. The book paints him in a way where even Jabba the Hutt is kind of subservient to Xizor, is lower on the totem pole than Xizor, which again is fun, which is interesting. And then he is in a power struggle with Vader. He hates Vader. He hates Vader for stuff that Vader has done. But what he wants to do is replace Vader as the Emperor's number one guy. Right? He wants in with the Emperor because the only person in Xizor's mind more powerful than Xizor is the Emperor. And the only person standing between him and the Emperor is Vader. So he wants to get rid of Vader. But he learns through his extensive spy network that Luke Skywalker is the son of Vader. And so he wants to kill Luke Skywalker. And that is where most of the conflict in this book comes from. You know, Luke and Leia and Lando are trying to find Han. Xizor is trying to kill Luke. And Leia ends up meeting with Xizor for different reasons, because he makes overtures to the Alliance, because he's trying to get to her, to get to Luke and everything else. So it's a big web of stuff. But it is a really great book. It's a lot of fun. Again, kind of low stakes for all of our characters because we know how it ends. We know they all make it to Return of the Jedi. We know they never find Han. But it's a really interesting piece of Star Wars history to kind of read this book and understand these characters, Dash Rendar and everybody else. The YT-2400 freighter made its way to Rebels. There's an episode of Rebels. When I first saw the episode, I got super excited because in the promos it showed a YT-2400, and I said, "Oh my God, it's the Outrider!" And then one of the Star Wars YouTube things was like, "No, it's not. It's not the Outrider. It's somebody else. It's just another YT-2400." And I said, "Oh, bummer!" Right? I wanted it to be the Outrider. I wanted Dash to be canon. I want Dash Rendar to be canon. I think he's a cool character that you could easily bring in to canon somehow, some way. So, in case you can't tell, I really like Shadows of the Empire. I have read this as a kid probably over a dozen times. And then recently I read it just about a week ago. I finished reading it as an adult for probably the first time in 20 years, right? So I read it as a kid probably at least a dozen times, and then read it recently for the first time in about 20 years. But it is such a fun book. It is so cool. And it's a bummer that it's not canon, right? It really is. Because they threw this out with everything else. I think we can bring Shadows of the Empire back to canon. I think we can at least bring characters from Shadows of the Empire back to canon, like Prince Xizor and Dash Rendar and everybody else. The other cool thing about this book is that this book explains very nicely how Luke makes his lightsaber, at least in Legends. He finds there's a whole passage about it. There's whole passages about it of him making his new lightsaber after he loses his original. So that question is actually answered in this book, at least as far as Legends goes. I think they finally covered it in the comics, but I don't know if they've actually shown him building his new lightsaber in the comics yet. But I think they're getting close to showing him go through that process. But yeah, definitely worth the read. Definitely worth checking out. Like I said, I love this book. I loved the video game. And again, Star Wars history, Shadows of the Empire was a launch title for the Nintendo 64. It was one of the first video games launched for the Nintendo 64 when it was released, and it really showed the technical prowess of the Nintendo 64. But the first level of Shadows of the Empire, the Battle of Hoth, where you get to fly around in a 3D environment with a snowspeeder, fighting and toppling the walkers, the Imperial walkers, that level inspired the team at Factor 5 to really create, and LucasArts to create Rogue Squadron, which goes on to be the next smash hit for the Nintendo 64 for Star Wars video games, which Rogue Squadron was a game that I got when it first came out. I have very vivid memories of Rogue Squadron, playing Rogue Squadron in my bedroom on my Nintendo 64 and my little 13-inch screen or whatever I had back then. And I remember specifically going to a video game store, like at a mall, right, with my dad. And my dad, this was before the game came out. And again, I didn't have magazines back then. We didn't really do internet yet at our house. And so I had seen a commercial for it and like some video game show that was on TV. And my dad was asking the clerk, hey, what's this Rogue Squadron game coming out? And the clerk looked at me. He says, do you have Shadows of the Empire? And I said, yeah, I do. I love that game. He goes, do you like the first level? I said, yeah, I do. He goes, oh, you're going to love this game. This game is basically all of that. It's that first level, but the whole game is flight missions. And I looked at my dad. I was like, Dad, that sounds awesome. And this must have been like November of that year. And I ended up getting Rogue Squadron for Christmas that year. So again, a lot of fond memories surrounding Shadows of the Empire, whether it's the book or the game, and then things adjacent to that, which is, of course, eventually Rogue Squadron. So lots and lots of fun. Definitely recommend this book. It's an easy read. The paperback is less than 400 pages. But it's cool. It gives you again, it's like a time capsule of what Star Wars was back in the 90s and what it looked like back in the 90s and how these characters were interpreted and how they looked. Luke learns a lot from Dash, right? Luke learns a lot from Dash Rendar. We see Lando and how Lando is kind of in these missions and how he's still kind of earning trust from the group. We see Leia really doing what Leia does, right? She's kind of how we normally would envision her, normally would see her. So that's very interesting. So overall, really incredible book. Lots and lots of fun time with the characters, and a real piece of Star Wars history. If you haven't read Shadows of the Empire, check it out. It is an interesting read that takes you back 30 years, right? 1996, 96, 2006, 2016. 96, 2006, okay. 2006, 2016, 2026. Takes you back 30 years in Star Wars history. So definitely check it out. Definitely worth the read. And then if you ever get a chance to play Shadows of the Empire, like on an original Nintendo 64 or on some PC emulator, definitely do that. It is a lot of fun. And again, takes you back in time. So lots of fun. Definitely encourage you to check it out. Did you read Shadows of the Empire when you were younger? Did you play the video game? Did you read I never read the comic, if you believe that. I read the novel as an 8-year-old. Never read the comic, but whatever. So did you read this stuff? Check it out. Let me know what you think. What was your favorite part of Shadows of the Empire? And what do you want to see from Shadows of the Empire make its way into canon? And yeah, thanks for coming by, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for coming by. Take care of each other out there. And as always, may the Force be with you. Bye-bye.